Love is beautiful, but let's be real, it ain't always easy. We've been through the storms, the highs, the lows, and everything in between.
But through it all, we made a choice again and again. We chose love, we chose commitment, we chose us.
Because marriage isn't just about saying I do, it's about choosing to stay.
Welcome to We Chose Us, because love is worth the fight. And we are back with another episode of We Chose Us. It is me, Rob.
Chris.
And
choosers.
Yeah, welcome choosers. Welcome back for another episode I think this one should be pretty good today. We've got some things lined up for you today, but we are a ministry, or we are a podcast where we deal with things in real life situations and circumstances and things of that nature. And so I'm going to ask Brian to keep rolling because there's a couple things that I need to do. I'm going to be right back. Okay. Yeah.
Where are you going?
We gonna keep rolling.
Are we keep rolling? I was like, who gets up and what is that? What is happening here? Okay. Am I opening this on?
Yeah, I'll give everybody the backstory as you're opening it. Chris and I had a spat this morning. And it was not a good spat. And there are some things that, I shared and I said and I did. And I have apologized, but I'm kind of apologizing in front of the world and saying, I love you.
Aww.
And you mean so much to me, and our family means so much to me. And I just wanted to take this opportunity to publicly apologize for everything that went on earlier. We'll get into that.
On live TV?
On live, yeah, I guess on semi-live, right? Pre-recorded semi-live.
Well, I mean, he got all my favorite things. So if anyone knows me, I got apple chips. Y'all, this is funny because people always say your junk food is health food. And so I got a Poppy. I got cantaloupe.
The junkiest thing she got, though.
I know, but my twin snakes. This is so sweet. Thanks, babe.
You're welcome.
That was nice. Thank you. I didn't expect that at all.
Yeah, I said that and I did that because Chris and I had a discussion this morning that went a little left, and I want people to understand and realize, like, we still have a ways to go. We still have a journey to grow,
Definitely
to go
not perfect.
for growing, and especially in this communication and argument space. I feel like majority of the times we're able to navigate our arguments well, but there are times where we just don't, and emotions kind of get in the way, and it's just one of those things where you look back and you realize you could have said things totally differently to get your point across, right? And I think that, not to give the whole story, I think, and this is kind of like regarding how we raise our kids. And I think about 90% of the time we are on the same page, right? But there was a situation earlier to where I just kind of got frustrated. It was about our oldest daughter, and I just got frustrated because we're trying to navigate her freedoms and her growing up in cell phones and tablets and games and who she can talk to, who she can't talk to. And for those that know me, I'm an IT person. I know about too much probably when it comes to what cyber criminals do online, and I want to protect my family from such, right? So when things happen, I'll tell you guys one thing that I did. Kaylin's so sweet. She called herself inboxing a superstar on Instagram. Now, first of all, we don't allow Instagram, but she had a phone that was passed down that had an Instagram, and if you know, on your Apple devices, you can't block it from being re-downloaded again, right? Or I wasn't able to do so. So she re-downloaded this, and she was trying to inbox some so-called superstar, and it was not that superstar. And this had been going on for like 2 or 3 days. So what did Dad do? I sat her down. We watched a YouTube about what happens when kids reach out to these quote unquote stars and invite people to their house and all these things. Yep. And, you know, these are the things that, like, a lot of people may not agree with it. Like, some people would put their hands on their kid. We're not those types of people, but I want her to mature and realize, like, the world isn't great and everybody doesn't mean you well. And these people was not the superstar that you thought. They was setting you up. And so we watched a video where this guy, he basically was messaging these little girls, and he had their parents behind the messages. So the parents were in on it. And in each one of the instances, the person on the other side of the phone was able to get the girls to come out the house, and they simulated a kidnapping, and it worked all 3 times. And so I showed that to her because I want her to see, like, this is real. Like, if you share our address with people, if you share where you go to school and all these different things, like our lives are kind of like on social media anyway, so we don't need any extra out there. And that's the type of parenting I do. Like, I want realizations, and I want, if I feel like there's something getting too close, like, I'm shutting it all down. Right. And so today, it just went too far for me because I was just really agitated. I think I just was kind of stressed out anyway, just because we had a lot of stuff going on today. And I didn't take it out on Chris, but my approach was she felt the backlash of it, right? I always tell Chris whenever we get into an argument, I'm not mad at you. I'm just frustrated at a situation, but it can still come off that I'm mad at her. So this is what led to the bag of goodies and stuff like that, and the apology across the world, because I love you. I recognize it. And, we're not stopping. We're not changing. We still have communication. That's things that we need to talk about.
Absolutely.
But yeah. So again, I'm sorry.
Well, thank you. I appreciate that. That was really sweet and unexpected. I was still a little mad.
I know.
I was in my feelings.
She was giving me church hugs, at the house.
It's like, why are you talking to me like that? But I think above it all, it goes into kind of the topic for today, which is those silent wars, right? Yeah. Because that's something that even in our arguments, because we still argue, y'all. Like, some people will email and be like, I'm so thankful for how y'all marriage is navigating, or how you all are navigating marriage. Can you help me get to this place where, I'm always happy? And I'm like, wait, you didn't say always happy. You know what I mean? Like, we've overcome some things, but there's still some silent wars. And I think the topic is what we're not saying is hurting us. And so that leads into kind of the overwhelming stress and arguments and stuff like that, because this wasn't the first one this week. Yeah. This was the second one this week. Yeah. And I think this one was just like, all right, what's happening? And I remember telling you sometime in the middle of the week, like, don't wait until we argue to tell me what's on your mind, because I'm not listening. And I can't receive it if we're both at an emotional high. And so I was like, it's better if you would just open up and tell me, even if it's not a trigger or something that didn't cause you to think about it. Like, if it's something that's going on, we don't even have to be talking about it. We could just be sitting on the couch and be like, Chris, can we talk for a moment? And I would rather it be that rather than it to kind of come up in an actual argument. And that's the thing. I think silent wars is what causes arguments to be bigger than what they need to be, because we're holding so much in until it's time. And that's how I look at it. Like, until it's time, I'm waiting. But when it's time, I'm about to unleash on her. You know what I mean? And that's why I think a lot of the frustration comes from, is because we're carrying so much that when those emotions are triggered, then it's like a blast of just anger that comes out. And I'm looking like, or you're looking like, wait, what just happened? What is happening? This situation wasn't even that heavy, but it's essentially everything we've carried and then decided to unleash at one time.
Yeah, I think sometimes what tends to happen is if you have a stressful week, a week where there's a lot of decisions that need to be made, a week where you might be expecting things to go a certain way and you didn't, a week where just a lot of transition. Like this is like the third week that our kids have been out of school. This is the first week of summer camp. Like it was just a lot of transition that was going on. And so I feel like when there's a lot of external just distractors that are kind of around, then it starts to chip away at us internally, you know, and that weight starts to get heavy and you start to get overwhelmed. And so then when it comes to the point where you're trying to have a conversation, like that's when everything bubbles up to the top.
Yeah.
You know, because I can't get mad at my kids because they got summer camp. You know, I can get mad at work, but I can't turn around and snap on my boss. You know what I'm saying? Or my colleagues or something like that. And it should be that I can't snap on my spouse. And that's not necessarily what happens. I think it's just you get to see the explosion, you know,
Right.
The volcano erupting. Now, you know, I say that I'm not a volcano type person. Like I don't, you know, there's some people that really go far when they get angry. I'm not that type of person, but she will definitely see my frustration and my anger. And I don't yell, but I get really sharp and my tone really, my voice gets deep and it changes and all these different types of things because I kind of go there. And that's what I did a couple times this week. I guess so. I don't. Yeah. Yesterday?
Twice.
Yesterday? Or
I don't know if
before?
it was yesterday, but it was this week.
Okay. It was this week.
And
okay.
then today.
Okay. Well, hopefully that's enough candy that'll cover for last time too.
And cantaloupe.
And cantaloupe. Candy and cantaloupe.
But no, like you're right. And I think, you know, learning how to, and this is something I'm consistently learning myself, right? And I think part of me I'm not, how can I phrase this? I'm not a person who argues not because I've learned how to overcome them, but I'm tired of them. They are so draining.
Yeah.
Arguments are so draining. And so I think I took that and say, okay, I got to learn how to navigate through this because I don't like how I feel in the middle of an argument, and I definitely don't like how I feel after an argument. Like I just want to enjoy life, and arguments just come out of nowhere and they just completely shift the day.
Yeah. And
so I think learning how to avoid kind of those silent killers in a relationship is so important. I feel like most arguments come from what is not said.
Yeah.
And it comes from the buildup of our silence. And then when we get overwhelmed, when we're triggered, when we feel burdened, or when something happens that completely causes us to question life, our relationship, then we snap. And typically we snap on the person closest to us. And I think that is one of the reasons why we got to learn how to start overcoming kind of that emotional strain, because it doesn't just cause stress, but it causes us to get sick. It causes us to not respond in the way that we desire to respond. It causes us to act outside of our character. It causes us to be completely just not who we desire to be in life.
Right.
And so sometimes that can all stop just by opening our mouths and speaking from a place of even fear. Because a lot of times we stay silent because we're afraid of the response. We stay silent because I'm afraid of the outcome. Like in today's argument, when I felt like you were getting a little beside yourself, you know what I mean? I was like, okay, he was on his way somewhere. And he was standing in the kitchen, and I mean, it was just the tone. I didn't like the tone. And I knew within myself that if we kept going, then it was about to be on. So I just said, hey, can you go ahead and go to wherever you need to go? Calm down and let's revisit this.
You ain't say it like that.
I didn't, because I was already in my emotions. I was already in my emotions.
Yeah.
But I was already there, but I didn't want it to go any further. And he took that like I was dismissing. He was like, wait a minute. I mean, it just went off from there. But I'm like, I'm trying to de-escalate the situation because I could say, and this is why. No, it did not come off all pretty like that. But I really was like, you go ahead about your business before this turn around and really be something we didn't want it to be, right?
Yeah.
And that was my focus because I felt that your tone was not even coming from the situation. It was coming from a buildup. It was coming from, I could tell, frustrations of the week. You had been busy. It had been a lot going on. And it was even some things mentioned yesterday about this, about the phone situation with Kaylin. So I knew it was a buildup. So I knew what you were going to throw at me wasn't necessarily going to be received as kindly as you wanted it to be. But that's what I mean. Those are like the silent wars. It's like, I look at silent wars and you can kind of, add to this as like the battles that we have internally, but our spouse don't know, but we act as if they're in our heads and they should know.
Yeah, that's true.
Those are the silent wars.
Yeah, that's true. I think we expect our spouse to know us enough to know where we're coming from. And kind of even going back to the phone situation, I always have to remember that you work in IT, but you don't work in IT as deeply as I do. No. And so there are things that I've seen, that I've done, that I'm like, oh man, we just got to make sure we're good and stuff like that. And those things kind of float to the top of my mind because I'm also the protector as well. I can't lose and one of y'all, you know what I'm saying? So at the onset, if I feel like there's any encroachment upon our family in anything, like that's when, the protector stands up and stands out. And that's when sometimes in the midst of it all, I don't care. Like I can be talking to you or I can be talking to the kids and like, this is the point, like this is what you're not going to do. And that's because that's the fear that something could happen, the fear that I could lose my family, and sometimes it isn't going to come out right. And so, but I agree with you 100%. Sometimes it is one of those things where you think that your spouse is in your head. And the thing about today, though, which was really frustrating to me, was that you did ask me a question. I tried to answer and you stopped me, but then I wasn't really frustrated at that. Y'all, this is what happened. So she says, go ahead and get up out of here, right? I ain't say it like that. I'm good. Yeah, I'm just saying, like, this is kind of like, you got somewhere to go, blah, blah, blah. All right, cool. I'm gone, I leave, and then she opens the door and she says, so you gonna leave like that? And I'm like,
because you slammed the door.
I was just trying to leave because I was running late. You know what I'm saying? I'm like, how you going to say, you going to tell me to leave, and then when I leave, you're going to leave like that? And then you're like, that's not how we do. And let me give a backstory. This is why we don't do that. So I admit I was wrong. I was running late, though, so I was just kind of like, this is one of the things where I decided to leave and not stay. But I wasn't at the point where I was going to, like, run off the road. But we know someone very close to us, he and his wife did have an argument, and that was the last time that they had saw each other. Soon after that, he ended up getting a car accident and passing. So we make an effort not to leave the house frustrated or angry, so much so that it could cause us to have a lack of judgment in the car. So I get what you were saying there.
But what was the last thing I said? And then I slammed the door.
I don't even know what you said.
I said safe travels.
Yeah, you did. She did. Safe travels. Man, you don't get up out of here. I got in the car. I was like, I'm not even, Lord. I don't even know what I did. I just got in the car and I just started driving. I went and got me an energy drink. And I was like, man, let me just focus on. And then I sent her a voice message saying I apologized again. So, But of course, when I got home, she was still mad. She would give me the church hug. The side church hug. I was like, a church hug? What? 2 times? What?
Yep. I mean, I think that is, I think, also a major part is understanding that an argument doesn't have to be a major shift in your relationship. That is, I think, learning how to harness or control your emotions enough to know that this moment doesn't define our day. This moment doesn't define our next movements. This moment doesn't define our next steps. It doesn't define how we treat each other, within the next 10 minutes. It doesn't have to have that much power or control. And I think that's the hardest part, is to essentially let go of your emotions enough to be able to treat your spouse with love and allow love to literally intervene. And it's not even just with arguments. It's like, I feel like this is something we can apply in anything. Arguments, and kind of like we talked about in the last episode, betrayal, learning to trust again, learning to open up and receive your spouse again, learning to fall in love again. For spouses like me, in our relationship who, fell out of love and so forth and so on, is understanding that one moment doesn't define the entire, life cycle of who you are. It doesn't define your marriage. It doesn't change or alter every single thing, but in those moments, like you said, when you spoke about the church hug, I felt my emotions like, don't let go. Nope. He wasn't right. He did you wrong, and all I had to do was pull the arm around. But it's an emotional bondage that tries to attack you, to keep you withdrawn and to keep you in bitterness and to keep you in this space of unforgiveness. And I really believe that is the domino effect of why marriages fail, is because we allow our emotions to trap us and keep us in particular spaces that God is like, you have power to overcome that.
Yeah.
You have the authority to rebel against what your emotions are currently telling you to do. You have authority to come against all the negativity that is coming against your marriage. But instead of that, we just flow with what's easy. And what's easy is, I don't feel like it, so I'm gonna just give you this right now. But we tend to carry that into the next day and the next day. And before you know it, there's argument after argument. There's then betrayal. Then there's, questioning our marriage. Then there's divorce on the table. And it's a domino effect because we don't know how to come out quickly. And instead, we just kind of sit there and allow the enemy to play with our vulnerabilities. But as I'm thinking, it's like I remember just in that moment, like I could have really hugged you. And I know that's a small thing, but thinking about the times where we were kind of overcoming our major battles and we were kind of falling into divorce, that was some of the obstacles that were difficult for me to overcome, was overcoming those momentary negative issues or challenges, overcoming those moments that tried to completely knock me out. You know what I mean? Like, that is what I believe kind of drew me into emotional bondage and really a place where I honestly did not want to love you anymore. And I'm just thinking, like, how many times do we allow the enemy or allow our emotions to play with us and keep us trapped? And it's like, nah, I'm gonna come against that right now. Like, being intentional to say, nah, I'm not gonna allow my emotions to make my decisions for me. You know?
Yeah. It's funny, just listening to what you said, I was thinking about like different people that we have counseled over the years or talked to, just not even counseling, just talk to in general, friends and stuff like that. When we ask, this is for me, I don't know about for you, but when I ask, how did things start? I always get I don't know. I don't know how we got here.
Absolutely. Mm-hmm.
And I believe that I don't know is the unspoken needs, the unspoken desires, the silence, and it bubbles up, and then it turns into something that
unfamiliar.
Yeah, something unfamiliar, and it becomes, then it's something major, a major betrayal that has happened or something like that. But it's often, I don't know how we got here. I don't know how, but that goes back to making the choice to have tough conversations even in the good times, to say, hey, let me holler at you about this. And, you know, I could have personally, with the argument that we had today, I could have and should have come to you and say, hey, babe, like, we need to really rethink how we approach this, because I'm really unsettled. I'm really uneasy about all of these things that we're allowing Caitlin to do and all of that, but I didn't. And so it came out the other way. So my feelings were valid. And that's what happens, is that we feel like when we're in an argument and we stress our concerns, we feel like our feelings aren't valid, but they are valid. They are just falling on deaf ears, because like you told me, you can talk to me, but I'm not going to listen. You said, I'm not going to receive it. She said it this morning. I ain't going to receive it. You can talk to me. But she's right. And that's what happens in the midst of arguments, is that both of you can be right. Both things can be true. Yeah. But right now,
I ain't listening
either. And I need to go ahead and get up out the house, you know? And so, but it goes back to, again, when you're in a space in silence, you're letting silence win. Yeah. And your battle with silence could mean your marriage. Yeah. Your battle with not trying to ruffle any feathers. No,
it's
maybe
what's ruffling feathers.
You might need to ruffle them feathers. Now, you know, this also means that you need to check the way you ruffle them feathers, because you can't just out the gate start saying something that, especially if it's something that's very important, you can't just off the gate just start an argument. Some people I have talked to as well, they say it always ends up in an argument, but how did you start the conversation? Right. Is this a conversation where, hey, let's talk, you know, we're out at the, I don't know, Mexican restaurant and we're just talking about some different things and all of this? Or is this, you know, you walking in the house and I'm already mad about something and I just say something I say something to you and things go haywire? That happened with us. We talked about this in other episodes, where there was a question that you asked me about something that it was really direct, and that's when I ended up laying out on the floor, because I just could not take it no more. Right. You know, and so learning how to communicate how you and your spouse are able to be, what's the word? How can I put it? Peaceful, honorable, and respectful, and still stand on your own too, and say, this is how I feel, and validate what the other person is saying as well. You know, another thing that we do is, if there's a disagreement, now I'm mad that you disagree with me. You know what I'm saying? Like, I can say how I feel, and I can be like, all right, I say how I feel, and then you can say, well, I disagree, and then I get mad that you disagree. Yeah. It's not meant for us to always end up on the same page. Yeah. It's meant for us to understand where each other is coming from and then come to a resolution that works. Right. But oftentimes, we hear about people, we do it as well. We might say all of these things we care about in expectation for the other one to fall right in line and be, oh, okay, cool. No, that rarely happens with us.
Irreconcilable differences.
Yeah.
Isn't that a reason for divorce?
That's what it is.
And that's all that is not, never learning how to get on the same page or agree with one another. Or
agree to disagree.
Right. When honestly, you're not always going to agree. But I trust your understanding. I trust your way of navigating. You won't navigate through life the way that I do. But we can get on the same page and figure out how we can bring our differences together and navigate in oneness. That makes sense? And so I think, but everyone thinks that, oh no, you got to agree with the same thing. We got to be going in the same direction. We got to do this. We got to do that. And it's like, we're still human. We still have our own emotions. We still have our own desires, but that's where we trust God. That's where we put our faith in Him to bring us together in the moments where we're in spaces that don't align. And when we're in moments of, okay, how do I navigate this way if he's navigating that way? God, I need you to bring us in alignment. That's why you can't do it without God. Because as human beings, we be all over the place.
Yeah, absolutely.
I want this and I want that. No, I want this and I want that. Well, if you don't want what I want, then whatever.
Right.
I'm out of here. But then when you put God in the center of it all, God says, okay, let me show you how I can take what he wants, you want, and put this thing together.
Right.
And that's the beauty of having a marriage that is on the foundation of Jesus Christ, is knowing that what I can't do in my human frailty, in my human emotions, in my human confusion, in my human pride, you can.
Right.
So I need you. Like, we got to stop, and we've got to stop trying to navigate marriage on our own. We cannot. Literally, it's hard. Marriage is hard. Mm-hmm. It is difficult because it's easy. And I hear so many people, like, you know, my mom kind of mentioned it. She said, so many single people who like, I just want to stay single because there's so many married people saying, I wish I was single. Mm-hmm. And it's like, but who's your firm foundation? Because God can produce happiness in marriages that are unhappy. God can produce wholeness in marriages that are broken. God can literally do what we can't. And so it's like, what foundation are you standing on? Because if your foundation ain't on God, good luck. Good luck with your marriage. Mm-hmm. Good luck with your life. Good luck with all the things that you're doing. But I'm blessed because I know who's my healer. I know who's going to make sure we're in alignment and we're working this thing out together. We've got to get to a point where we authentically trust God and we stop looking at trust as a cliche. No, it is literally being fully persuaded that God can do this thing. Yeah. And as long as I work like my life with God, he got me. He got us. And I think that's the beauty of it all. It's a silent war because we're not speaking up. But we've got to trust God that when we open our mouths, he will literally speak for us. I think that's something that I had to learn is, God, I may not even know what to say or how to say it, but I trust you to speak for me. Yeah. Like I think it's in Romans 8 that says when we don't even know what to pray, the Holy Spirit makes intercession for us according to the will of God. Yeah. So it's like, even if you don't know what to say, don't let the silent war just be that silent. It may be silent with your spouse, but open your mouth to God. You know what I mean? Yeah. Let the Holy Spirit give you what you need to be able to share and open up with your spouse. And that's something that I'm speaking out of experience, because it was almost impossible to kind of get to a place of communication with us, because everything felt like an attack. Everything. Everything, yeah. Like you couldn't say you want a burger without me thinking why I want a burger. Like everything was an attack. And only God could literally open me or even you up to a space where we can receive each other again. Yeah.
Why do you feel, because you hear about all this stuff and what you said was just really good, why do you feel so many Christian marriages are running into these situations? Like, I have my thoughts and I'll share them, but why do you feel like, you know, the divorce rate is pretty much the same or higher in the Christian community than it is just, you know, period? But why do you feel like still as believers running into those same blockages?
I think two reasons. The first one and the second one I say are kind of like both my experiences, so I can time in. I think the first one is we have drawn this conclusion that our faith can fail, right? And what I mean by that is, before we get married as a Christian, right? And I'm just speaking of those who are Christian who, you know, went into covenant and married as Christians. We had kind of this big faith, right? That God is meeting our need, that God has checked off my list. And even if he didn't check off all of them, I got pretty much most of them. God, you know, I found love through Christ. And then when we get in these marriages, we're surprised that it's not easy, right? we're surprised that it ain't all daisy fields and and bouquets of roses.
Yeah.
We're surprised that it's not what we saw on the Hallmark or Lifetime channel, you know, the Good Lifetime, you know.
Yeah, please say the Good Lifetime.
But we're surprised. Okay, let's say the Christmas Lifetime.
Yeah, Christmas, yeah.
But we're surprised when it's not what we expected, because honestly, we expect everything with God to always kind of go our way. So God's going to answer the desires of my heart. I'm so happy. I'm so fulfilled. And then we enter these marriages and a spouse cheats. We enter these marriages and a spouse is a bomb. I mean, not a bomb. Yeah.
B-U-M.
Yeah, bomb. Not a bomb. Both. It could be both.
Bomb?
Bomb.
B-O-M-B? Bomb?
Bomb.
What is a bomb?
Bomb. Bum.
Bum, but what is both?
Bomb and bum and bum.
Okay, a bum as in a bum.
You messing up my message.
But I'm just trying to figure out what is both? A bomb and a bum?
Yeah, bomb and a bum.
So what is...
I was trying to say bum, but then it sounded like I was saying bum. And you was like, bum? And I'm like, shoot, both. You could be explosive or you could be sitting down lazy.
Okay. Okay. See, that's what I'm saying. I'm trying to figure out what does bomb have to do with it? Okay,
Nothing.
got you.
It
Okay, it don't.
I was saying
you were
bomb.
just trying to flow.
Yeah, I was just, and you
Yeah.
messed me up.
You know, I got to pick at your words. I got words I pick on when Chris
You
be
do.
talking.
Because, I mean, I still got a little...
Can you say vacuum?
I still got a little
Say
Decatur
vacuum.
in me. Don't
Say
do that.
vacuum.
Don't do that. Don't. Why are you doing this on public live TV? I still got a little Decatur in me. But anyway, lazy. But I'm trying to get a message across.
Okay, I'm sorry. All
Okay.
right.
But the point I'm making is I think it's failed expectations.
Yeah.
And a lot of people don't know how to deal with failed expectations. I
Yeah.
think you want to get your laugh out first before I finish my point.
She said vacuum.
You done? Because I didn't even use the
Vacuum.
word on TV, and I'm not going to use it. Can you stop?
She don't like shit. I'm in trouble, y'all. Okay.
Anyway, but it's failed expectations. I
Yeah.
really think people have a hard time, because that's what I dealt with. Marrying someone who I thought was a mistake,
Yeah.
because I had failed expectations. It's not what I prayed for. This is not what I believe God for. And you showed me a particular side of you that I felt was what God was answering according to my desires. But when we got married, it was like, oh snap, what has happened? Maybe did my faith not work? Did I make a mistake? Did I make a detour? And I feel like a lot of marriages fail in the beginning because of that. It's like, it's easy to get a divorce because this is not what I signed up for.
Yeah.
That's not. And honestly, I also believe is, okay, I need course correction now. So I'm going to get a divorce and go marry the person.
The right person. Yep.
Right.
Supposedly the right
exactly.
person.
So that's number one. But you can go ahead and respond. Since
I think a lot of it is unrealistic. It's expectations, but it's unrealistic expectations. There's, on social media, I like see some certain things, and I got, there are these single guys that, I still follow, and they're believers, and they're just talking about the things they expect in their wives and stuff, and they got all this nice little stuff here, and I'm like all of that stuff is cool, but you don't need that because you're doing this based off the expectation that you're always going to be Mr. I pray and I go to scripture every single time the situation happens, when that's just not real.
Right.
Life happens, and yeah, of course, your essence of you will pray and all of these different things, but oftentimes when we pray, we expect an answer now, and if you don't get an answer now, you have to make a decision based off of, and sometimes the decisions are really big decisions on how to approach your spouse and all these different things, and what you need to pray is the ability to be able, for you and your wife to be able to communicate well, right? And you need to be able to pray that even in the times where you slip and you fall, your wife doesn't hold it against you, and those types of things. I thought you hearing me cuss, like you would like leave You know what I'm saying? And a lot of people like that's their expectation.
It
and
is.
Some people will be like, "Oh my God, he cussed
thought he was
or
a
she
man of
cussed. I
God."
thought he was a man of God." And like, hold on, like for real? Like this is why we're making life decisions based off of someone having a very low and vulnerable moment, and that's what people do often. You know, these unrealistic expectations. And I'm glad that we have kind of like stripped it out. While you were talking and I was laughing, I was thinking about what was the Scooby Doo when they used to take off the mask. They were like, I would have gotten away with it if it wasn't for you meddling kids. You know what I'm saying? Like, and that's the way, that's not the way I was trying to portray myself
That's
as.
what you did.
You know what I'm saying? I wasn't trying to, I would have got away with it if you didn't take off my mask and I was Mr.
dare you.
Perfect. How dare you? I mean, but I needed some realization too that I wasn't Mr. Perfect.
Yeah.
I wasn't Superman. And I am human.
Right.
And now I'm so glad that I can be myself around you 100%.
Yeah.
So it's not about, now I get a chance to cuss, because that's not what it is. That's not what I naturally do anyway. But if I get pissed off to a point and I let some words fly, she's not, oh my God, the devil is in them and trying to cast nothing out of me. She just know that I'm mad and I just need to calm down.
Kayla might cast the devil out of you for cussing.
Lord, my daughter.
Silent wars. She will.
That little girl, she will. She
hear if our daughter hear you cuss, she might cast the devil out. Like that is not of God.
That is not. Yeah, that is.
And she
definitely.
says, "Daddy cuss, but Mommy does it." So
One
Mommy's
time,
like
y'all,
super safe.
3 years ago, let me tell. Okay, so listen, because now people be like, "Ooh, Pastor Rob cuss." So here's the thing, right? Because I know how people think. They're gonna go and they're gonna be like, "Dang, I ain't know all that stuff." Blah blah blah. Here's what happened, y'all. Christmas Eve, 2023 or maybe 2022.
Gosh.
Target. Okay, I am, and if you listening, brother. I don't know you, but I've still got
a story.
Listen.
He ain't listening.
So
he don't even remember you.
so I'm walking, we're going to Target, right? And it's Christmas Eve. Target is about to close, and we had to get like one more thing. And so I left her and the kids in the car. And when I got out of the car, I had my earpiece in because we were still continuing to talk about these different things while I went ahead and got stuff out the store. Well, if you're in Target, I don't know about all Targets, but the Target in McDonough has all of these signs that says, stop when a pedestrian is in the street. And not just at the little crossing lines, but there's all these signs that say this, right? So I'm walking across the street, and this dude in this beat up Honda Civic hits the gas, and this is probably like a 92 Honda Civic. You know what I'm saying?
Okay.
And he hits the gas while I'm in the middle of the street. And I turned around, and I don't even know, did I drop an F-bomb?
I don't know. I went with y'all.
You were in the
Kayla
car.
told.
No, you were in the car. You were on the speaker. You were on the speakerphone.
Oh, I can't remember.
You don't even remember.
I don't.
So I turned around and I say, bleepity bleep, MF or blah, blah, blah. And because he's almost about to hit me. And I'm about to kick the mess out of his car, kick the door off his car because it looked like it was about to fall off anyway. And he slowed up, and he started saying some stuff too. And but by that time I had already said what I was going to say. And you were like, Rob.
Oh, I remember.
You're on speakerphone. You don't remember that?
Oh, Caitlin was in the car.
Kayla was in the car.
That's what it was.
You're on speakerphone.
Oh, okay.
And I said, oh, man. So I went ahead and went in the store. And then, of course, I had to come out and apologize. And Kayla was just like, oh my gosh.
Kayla rebuked you.
My dad cussed. You're not supposed to say
that
those
is not
words,
of God.
Dad. That is not. She just basically just gave me the third degree about using those words. And I told her, I said, baby, sometimes in certain situations, people do things where you feel like you need to protect yourself. And I needed that guy to know, like, you ain't gonna just run over me. You know what I'm saying? And if you get out the car, you're gonna have to square up. You know what I'm saying? So
you would have fought him.
Of course I would have fought him. If he would have came at me, I would have fought him.
I'm just
But what I was
asking.
thinking though, at the same time, I wasn't strapped up. So I was like, man, if this dude get out of the car and he's strapped up and I'm not, I'm in trouble. That was another reason why I went ahead and went.
That's
and
why you
stuff.
got to harness your emotions, as we're talking about.
Listen, he almost hit
Not
me with
respond.
his. I almost had Civic tattooed on my
not,
leg, the little H, the Honda H.
probably your body would have been sick.
But it was Christmas Eve too.
Okay.
But the whole thing is, I know y'all, we getting all distracted.
go back.
We got to bring her back
It
in.
took you 10 minutes to tell you just crossing the street. That's
Because
all you had to say.
the people didn't know that
Okay.
I just don't be dropping F-bombs just cuz.
Okay. They know. Praise the Lord. Okay.
Now this one over here doesn't cuss at all.
Can you go back
Nothing.
to the can we go
Nothing,
can we
not at
finish
all.
the point?
I don't even remember what the point was no more.
See what I'm saying? We were talking about, you were asking me why so many marriages in the church are, filing for divorce. And, to, I guess, kind of bring it to the close, I think it is like, again, going back to those silent wars. Because one, you got failed expectations because of possible unrealistic expectations. Having kind of your expectations on an extreme high, feeling like God was supposed to do A, B, C, and maybe I made a mistake and this isn't working, so let me go do this again. But I also think, if we can be honest, this stuff is hard. Marriage is hard to navigate because it brings out so much within you. It brings out your vulnerabilities. It brings out your uncertainties. It brings out your inadequacies. It brings out all of the things that I think, honestly, we run from as human beings. Yeah. And it's easier not to deal with those things because it takes so much effort, commitment, hurt to deal with it. You go through navigating through trauma or healing from trauma to just overcome particular circumstances in your marriage. And a lot of times people don't want to deal with that. So divorce is easy. I'd rather start over or just get a divorce and live my life versus trying to overcome this hard task. Like, think about infidelity. You know what I mean? I can't trust you again. You have completely defiled our marriage. I mean, and everything. Like, I'm out of here. That was it. I know people who say that if there was one thing that I would get a divorce concerning, and that would be infidelity. Like, they already made up in their minds. But what if you forgave? You get what I mean? Like, what if you all learn to navigate and heal together and figure out ways to come together and heal from that particular situation? And I'm not saying, I'm not, this is not me encouraging anyone to just overcome, everything, but at least try. Yeah. At least try.
Excuse me. You and I, we were sitting down watching the movie Love Unexpected. Shouts out to Alex Carter. And I think it was on like Amazon Prime or something, or Tubi. And there was a couple of stories that were going, and there was one side story in there, and I don't remember everything, but it was a couple, either they were married or they had been together for a long time, and the wife ended up having an affair, ended up getting pregnant, right? And towards the end of the movie, come to find out, they were still together, but that wasn't his kid. That was the kid from the affair. And excuse me. And while we were watching it, I said, "Oh, that couldn't be me. Nobody. Nope. Couldn't do it.
He forgave her.
And I was like, nope, I couldn't do it. I'm out. And you were just like, why? And I was like, no, because I'm not gonna be sitting here looking up, seeing some dude face and thinking about all the stuff y'all did. You had a kid and all this stuff, and you were like, but they invested a lot of time together. And this was a moment and something happened and he chose to forgive. And you were talking about if something like that happened with us. Of course, we're not saying it. We're not encouraging anything like that. But you said that if it happened with us, we've invested so much time together that I would forgive and we could try, you know. And I sat with that for a little bit because I was like, I don't know. You know what I'm saying? I was sitting with it for a long time. I don't think I could do it. And here recently I thought about it and I said, you know what? Just like what you said a little while ago, it's worth a try because of the investment that we have put in. You know, I said on the last episode or one of the last episodes that we're greater than our lowest moments.
Yep.
And, you know, the unfortunate thing is it would have been bad because we didn't address whatever the issue was that got to that point anyway. But and that would have been, you know, a consequence from it, right? But that would have just said that, man, we should have tried harder, had more conversations and those types of things. So this would not have happened.
Yeah. And I don't think it's just a matter of, you know, I think realizing also that it's not just the time that was invested, but we're in covenant.
Yeah.
And if we're, again, standing on the foundation of God, yes, we did some things that weren't necessarily, you know, right. They weren't necessarily, and let me not even say necessarily, they weren't right. You know, you make decisions sometimes and they're not right.
Yeah.
But I think a lot of times we shut God out before we give him an opportunity to come in. So it's like, oh, if you ever did that, I'm just letting you know I'm out. But is that honestly, faithfully trusting God with your marriage? Because you don't know that if something like that happens, would you be out? Or would there be a change of heart because God intervenes and show you something that you might not have ever seen or thought that would be possible? And that's called forgiveness. And I think that's something that's a bad word in marriage, because forgiveness means that I give you a pass, but that's not what forgiveness is about. Forgiveness is taking the burden that I'm carrying because you've made me feel so bad, and I'm taking this burden and I'm giving it to God. I'm not giving it back to you, and I'm not gonna, because literally that's what it is. Unforgiveness is a burden. And it ain't hurting the person I'm not forgiving. We hear this all the time. It's hurting me because every time I see you, I feel some kind of way. Every time I think about what happened or what you did, oh, I'm ready to fight, or I'm ready to go off. That's our emotional burden, and it's breaking us down, and it's causing us to live in this weary, dry place. There is no fulfillment there. So forgiveness isn't giving somebody a pass. It's giving me a relief, like a release from whatever it is that's been kind of making me feel trapped and in this space of unfulfillment and uncertainty, and living in this consistent place where I'm empty because I just can't let go. But forgiveness is saying, God, you have it. I trust you. And I trust you, whatever decision you lead me in, whichever door you're taking me through, however you want to, you know, navigate my life, my next steps. God, I trust you with that because I need to know what true forgiveness and fulfillment looks like.
Yeah.
And that's what it is. But it's a bad word in marriage. So we go to divorce because I'm not going to give you a pass. I'm going to show you, just like you said, you had to show Lil Hump the Civic. I'm going to show you who I am.
Yeah.
But that's what people do in marriage. I'm going to show you that you can't walk all over me. Bet, I'm out. But what if forgiving is not a sign of walking over? What if forgiveness is not a sign of somebody taking dominance over you? What if it's actually you changing and opening up and allowing God to do something with your heart?
Yeah.
We don't think about that. We just think about, you know, I got to show, you know, whoever that you ain't gonna do me like that.
Yeah.
And so we get into a divorce, and honestly, a lot of people who I counsel who have gone through divorce kind of go through those shoulda, coulda, wouldas.
Yeah. I wish it would have stayed longer.
Yeah. Or maybe what if this would have happened?
Yeah.
Or maybe if I would have tried or worked it out. They go through that because they get into these other relationships and realize, oh, snap, it ain't what I thought it was out here.
I thought it was.
And what if I just would have taken the time
Yeah.
to build more, to forgive, to heal?
To speak in silence.
Yeah. And I think that's real. It's giving God an opportunity to heal your heart, no matter what the situation is. Now, I'm not saying we sit over here look like Boo Boo the Fool all the time and just let somebody beat up on us.
Right.
But in certain situations, you've got to give God an opportunity to do what he is powerful enough to do.
Yeah.
To heal you, heal your marriage, restore, rebuild, replenish. And I really believe that we'll be surprised by the outcome of what God can do versus what we try to do. I really do.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. My thought as we get ready to close is that if you're suffering in silence, if you're not communicating, my challenge to you is to choose to communicate and study, take time, read, pray, figure out a way to communicate these unspoken needs, these unspoken desires or wants, these things that have continuously probably been plaguing you for years. Sometimes people have these unspoken needs that plague them for years and they don't say anything. And then when stuff hits the fan, it hits the fan. And that's when betrayal, like we said on one of the last episodes, happens and all of that. Mm-hmm. So take your time and work on that communication. Mm-hmm. Figure it out, how you'll be able to at least get that off your chest. Yeah. Because we said this before, one of the reasons that stopped us from getting a divorce was you and I both saying like what if what if I tried harder? Mm-hmm. You know, I need to come to the end of myself, period, before I turn away and walk away from this thing. Mm-hmm. And that may be what some of you may be considering doing, it, walking away from it. But make sure you come to the end of yourself. Mm-hmm. Make sure that you have tried, you have prayed, and you have done everything you can do. So when you can look back and say that you chose to walk away, that you can say you've done everything in your power to do so. Mm-hmm. Because on the opposite side, you don't know. You know, people say the grass is greener on the other side. That thing might be artificial turf. Mm-hmm. Might be some ant hills and some dirt all up in that. You know what I'm saying? Thinking that it's good and it ain't. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So, so that's for me. Did you want to say any last words?
No. I just feel like you said, just take time to open up and put in the work. You know, I just feel like walking away shouldn't be as easy. And I really feel that way. I feel like it shouldn't be just easy, you know. I feel like there should be some pull there, you know, some work, you know, because this is, we said I do.
Yeah.
You know, and again, this is not saying just be vulnerable and take on everything, you know. But this is saying invite God in where you might have shut him out. Yep.
All right.
That's it.
All right, folks. Well, thank you so much for joining us in our forgiveness episode.
Clearly.
Right? But we thank y'all so much for supporting us. Please shoot us an email, show@WeChoseUs. Let us know. We've been getting some feedback. I actually got some guys that have been calling me and texting me now. Appreciate that. Just letting me know how much they appreciate the show as well. And, you know, we're being vulnerable. We're being transparent, you know, and we really hope and pray that this is helping you all that's out there. So thank you all so much. And we're going to see y'all on the next one.
Yep. Thank you.
See y'all later.
Choosers.
And cut.
Love is beautiful, but let's be real. It ain't always easy. We've been through the storms, the highs, the lows, and everything in between.
But through it all, we made a choice again and again. We chose love. We chose commitment. We chose us.
Because marriage isn't just about saying I do. It's about choosing to stay.
Welcome to We Chose Us, because love is worth the fight.